Alrighty. G'day. Hey Gail, how you going? I'm just going to do a quick audio test, make sure everyone can still hear me. You guys can still hear the music, you know, that kind of stuff. Give me a sec, can still hear. Cool, we are good to go. Oh my goodness, what a day. I'm actually quite surprised. I'm just going to be streaming this morning. We had a crack of a storm a couple of nights ago. Actually, I'm not going to because it's nice and sunny. I wish I really could show you my view from my state because it's really beautiful. Yeah, I had a crack of a storm from a couple of days ago, and the power company turned our power off yesterday, which is kind of hilarious because they needed to turn the power off because there was a power pole that needed to be looked at. And when I was driving into work, I just got to kind of step forward. I had to drive into work when they turned the power off. The power pole was like that, and so yeah, it was still working. Obviously, it was just a lot closer to the ground than it should be. So they obviously needed to fix that, which is really good of them. But the funny part is, it's also kind of the it's not the end of the world. Like at the end of the day, I'm not particularly overly concerned. Is that we've got to test the Powerwall 2 installed. We're going to test the Powerwall 2. And so on Thursday, I had the electricians out. They had a pretty tough job. That day was 31 degrees and they were in our ceiling pulling cables. So that would have been an easy 32 to 33, 34 degrees up in the ceiling. Those poor blokes. Pulling cables for the Tesla Powerwall 2, and they just had a really rough day. So at the end of the day, though, they just couldn't finish that day, and he couldn't come back the following day because he had some personal matters to attend to. So we were pretty different weather here in Switzerland. Snowstorm today. Oh goodness. I kind of wish you to see the difference. I don't think my view is as good as what you're going to get in Switzerland. I know that's like when we went up to the Dolomites and when we were in Italy that time, it's quite spectacular. But for Australia, what I have is actually quite nice. I'll see if I can dig up a photo somewhere. I think I've got a photo. It's like my view. Yeah, I'll open up Discord. Yeah, that one. Where is Discord? I can't find Discord. I don't even know what that is. Oh well, but essentially I've just got this mountain range right there. So so today is a bit of an interesting day. I'm going to be trying to build DSC Pull Server with using Datum. It's very interesting because it's one of the things that I've been working quite extensively with at work, is looking at a means to be able to replace a lot of the existing installers and looking at configuration management as a solution, which is very interesting. Obviously there's cost limitations with that and involved with that. So one of the things that we found was that obviously DSC was the best. It's a PowerShell shop, so DSC was the best resource for it, which was really good. They're a PowerShell shop, which makes it so much easier. But at the same time, though, it's kind of a little bit limited to what we can do. So we're going to go use the DSC Pull Server. I'm not particularly convinced that Tug. We can't use Azure Automation or Azure Policy Guest Configuration just because the costings is just ridiculous. And don't get me started on that. That's going to make me upset. So essentially what we're going to be doing is just using it on-prem, and we can't. I was looking at using Tug or DSC Trek, so the open source implementations, but there hasn't been any commits for quite some time, so I'm not sure if it's in preview with I'm not sure if there's any commits there. So reduce the poll rate to reduce costs. It's not even that. It's like $7 a month. Oh, sorry. It's like the poll rate. Yeah, you could reduce the poll rate to reduce the cost, which I think that would help. But we've got if we were going to implement desired state configuration, we would be looking at easy 2,000 nodes. 2,000 nodes, 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 easy. So I think it'd even be like 3,000 is probably the accurate number, and that's a lot of money. Like that is a lot of money, and I know that Microsoft can probably do like pricing around that, and discounted pricing. But that's a really tough battle for us at the moment to fight. I know that at least if we can get a DSC Pull Server in, then at least be able to demonstrate capabilities, then yeah. And the other issue that we have is that I've got to be very careful with how I say stuff. Those machines don't have access to Azure. They're air-gapped. So it makes it a little bit trickier as well, especially in that instance. The other thing is that they are going down using Azure Stack. So they're obviously implementing the HCI implementations. But Microsoft doesn't support guest policy management or automation within that. So DSC server might be the interim solution. Ultimately, what we're probably going to do is push to something like Ansible or something like down that track. But at the moment, I actually just want to get something else in. So, and it's going to be pretty slow moving for even to get that implementation done. So, DSC Pull Server. I haven't built one using. Okay, I've got my. I've literally spun up one this morning. I don't know if this is finished yet. I don't think it has. So I've got my 2019 server. Let's make sure you guys can see that okay. Azure Arc, Azure Group Policy. Yeah, that's exactly right. Arc won't work because, again, the machines need to be air-gapped, unfortunately. That's the problem, is that I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, hey, we can just get it up in Azure and Arc, get it up Azure Arc, just, but we can't. There's, like those machines are air-gapped. They do not have access to the internet, period. And yeah, what air-gap means. Oh, yeah. So I've got this awesome script here, which I'm just kind of working through. I don't know where I'm at. Okay, I've got to join domain. I've just got a domain on my local network. I just need to finish this. I think that totally failed. I'm gonna have to go and have a look. But there's one thing. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. One thing I totally, really, really love is that how good is VMs nowadays. Remember back in the day when you were trying to work with VMs and it just took forever. Like you'd be sitting there, wait for it to boot up. Nowadays it's just off, it's on, and I don't even have to worry about like creating sysprepping stuff. Like back in the day, it had this comprehensive setup with sysprep. It's so great nowadays. Gosh, I love SSDs. Okay, did that join? I don't think it did because I logged in with my existing thing. I'm just going to quickly see if it's going to let me do it this time. I'll tell you why it's not working. Some bozo didn't turn on his domain controller. Oh my goodness. So one of the things we're going to be doing I've kind of got a rudimentary data configuration set up. And one of the interesting things while we're waiting for that domain controller to spin up, which is probably already done by now, is I was mucking around and I came up with this really interesting concept where obviously the way that Datum compiles, when you compile the root within the root configuration and you call get DSC splattered resource, essentially it effectively just creates a single DSC resource. And then it all is nested within there. And I kind of got thinking about that because one of the things I thought was, and this was something that I found quite interesting was that DSC is really great. Like, don't get me wrong, I love DSC. But the one thing I really don't like is the depends on attribute. And now, yes, I agree. Like I can understand why the naming schema for the depends on exists. However, I'm super lazy and I thought, how can I make this a little easier? And I was mucking around with it and I realized that Datum can actually do a lot of the heavy lifting for us without having to do much work. And so I come up with this, let's see if I can find it. So essentially, this is just as an example input. One of the things I've thought of is, okay, let's see if, is it possible to be able to create a Datum configuration, which essentially you define your resource name, you can define a configuration name, and then basically you don't have to use the depends on. And it's, to be honest, you're kind of doing the same thing because you're just specifying the resource name. But the idea is that I could just specify test3, for instance, here. So it's dependent on this test3 configuration here. And then within the root configuration, I was kind of wrote a little bit of code, but essentially what it does is it essentially goes through and adds, it goes and looks at the configuration state. This is totally broken at the moment, but it looks at the configuration state, and the idea is that it is able to automatically go and look for the actual resource. And if it goes, okay, it's this resource, then it can go and automatically append the type onto it, which I thought, okay, that's quite interesting. And then I thought, okay, what happens if you have multiple resources? And I thought, well, if using that approach, you could hypothetically just write, like similar to get DSC splattered resource, you could just, within that function, you could dynamically write the wait for resource into it. So essentially it kind of acts like it depends on. So obviously you can have multiple resource, desired state configuration resources that are dependent on other ones, that it kind of nicely compiles it together. So yeah. You mean remove the composite part of depends on? Yes, that's what I meant. Sorry, I'm not a DSC person. I'm just some old schmuck who decided that I like DSC and I want to get more involved with it. So yeah. Also, actually, while I've got you here, I quickly want to show you something. I know that like this is kind of a lot more personalized stream, but I thought I'll quickly show you something really interesting. So I'll be mucking around with the JEA session configuration DSC. I don't know if you saw this. So one of the things that I managed to do with, I don't know if this is, again, I don't know if JEA DSC is actually being actively used, but within the session configuration, I actually added the access mode to it. So you can now define within the configuration, you can actually define an access mode for this PowerShell JEA, the JEA session configuration. So you can actually disable explicitly your default PowerShell, your different PowerShell sessions or session configurations. And it's quite interesting because you can do, yeah, there's one of the things I found with JEA session configurations is that the access mode and the way that it works under the hood with the permissions, it's not just permissions, it's the way it does it, but it's very, very interesting. But I thought, hey, that's actually pretty cool. So yeah, something to think about. Anyway, not to talk about that. All right, so today we need to it is okay. I really should be looking at the chat a lot more, but I'm not, so I'm sorry for that. I'm trying to I got it on a different screen. I'm just going to move this over so I can see you. There we go. Oh, I can just pop you up there. That makes it a little bit easier. Cool. All right. So anyway, okay. So what I'm going to do is open up the documentation. It's probably the step number one. Because I've already got the DSC server. They've already got the Pull server documented quite extensively with the and to be honest, there's probably a Pull server resource out there somewhere. I'm talking from a person who doesn't know, so don't kill me. Don't be gentle. Be gentle. Okay, cool. Yeah. So you set up a Pull server. It's like this is the thing I love about especially with the configure I don't know what I clicked. For today, I'm not going to worry about. Ideally, I am going to implement an SQL database. But for today, I'm just going to use the local instance just because I'm too lazy. Okay, yeah. So there's already using the XDSC web resources. Cool. So easiest way to set up is using including following steps explain how to use the resource and the configuration to set up the service. Okay, so this is one thing I do. Okay, I really do love about DSC is. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Oh, goodness. DSC web service. Yes, thank you. X Windows feature. Sorry, I've got to quickly go back to the chat. DSC web service resource. Add support for auto documentation. Here's a quick question for you, Gail. On DSC, I know that Microsoft obviously technically deprecated the DSC Pull Server, and then basically saying, all right, let's go and use, Azure Automation and guest policy management. What's your thoughts on? Obviously, there's open source implementation. What's your thoughts on a third party like script runner picking up a DSC Pull server and just basically supporting it? I'm trying not to stand on any toes here, but I'm just trying to because ultimately I still see that there's a valid reason for people to have an on-prem instance of DSC. DSC Pull Server is supported along with Windows. The documentation says it does. It's okay. It's considered end of life, but it's they're not going to support. They're not going to add any new features to it. That's so okay. Cool. All right. Well, I think. Yeah. To be honest, though, it's yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm I need a third screen. I'm I've got. I'm just gonna have to pull this documentation over because I need to watch the chat. So the one thing I found is that okay. Oops. Oh, no, wrong one. Okay, so. I always open everything up in Edge and then I forget to open up in Firefox because Edge is sitting on my other browser here. So, yeah. Okay, cool. So, file upload. That's okay. So they're the DSC resources. Expression configuration. So I'm just having a quick look at this. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to have a look at that later. So what I was thinking is if, okay, for the moment, I'm just going to write some datum configuration. Sorry. So we don't need to worry about the node name because I already have the node name. I just need to update the datum configuration. Certificate thumbprint. Need to generate a certificate. That's a good question. I might have to. That's okay. We can generate a certificate. File registration key. Yes. Okay. Well, what I'm going to do. This is a good question, Michael. Okay, because it's in. Sorry, I'm still getting my head around this. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to copy this DSC resource. I'm going to go check the chat. How do you start with datum? What pipeline do you use? The real question is Policy or Pull Server third party? And my answer is good question. How do you start with datum? What pipeline do you use? Honestly, my implementation is super basic. Totally unrelated. I'll quickly show you. Sorry, my mind's just jumped around. So essentially, I'm just using a stock standard implementation of datum where essentially I've kind of just followed along with your documentation. One of the interesting things I found with datum, I don't know if people have explored this. Again, this is me not knowing much about the area, is that datum is an excellent tool for application configuration. GitHub DSC platform. Okay. And I've already got like so much to learn already. Get started. Oh my gosh. Favoriting that like right now. I literally built the whole thing from scratch. Okay. Oh wow, okay, yep. Merge hash deep, yep. Oh my god. Okay, I have to. Okay, I have a lot more to learn. So I've like literally set up my resolution presets. And then you've got all the handlers, yep, and you got your default lookup options. Okay. Okay, cool. This. Okay, so you got your nodes set up, root configuration. Oh my gosh. You just blown my mind. This is what I've been wanting. Okay, this is really cool. Okay, this is very cool. An edgy is my company. Just clone and run. Do it live. All right. I'm just gonna make sure that I'm not gonna get like some random stuff. All right. First things first. Let's clone. I feel like I should just drag you into a Discord call, so it makes it a bit easier. Like, do this, and I don't have to check chat. All right. Get clone. Yeah, okay, I can sort of get clone here. Actually, no, I'll just not be that 3. Not clog. Alright, let's just have a quick look. Okay, so you even have the build scripts. Oh my gosh. Like, this is like I was hunting through all the documentation to try and find the build script. YAML is a superset. so much easier. Okay. Task to run, default values, yep. Output directory, required modules, can be a path, yep. Pass the script, yes. Right, I'm just gonna head back to the comments. You can drag me into a call if you want. All right, let's do that. Let me open up Discord. If I can remember where I installed it. All that. Discord. Don't know where I installed Discord. It's not on the start menu. Did I actually? Yeah, I did. I wonder if there is a channel in the PowerShell configuration. So I'm just gonna go hunt for this Discord install. It's probably in my app. I have no idea where I put it. Is it there? No, there. Install Discord. Where did I install Discord? Okay. Oh, we could use Teams. Yes, let's use Teams. Teams. That works. All right. Oh, I just totally realized what I can do. What I might do. If you send me a DM on, just send me a message in my name at mycompany.com. Okay, that works. All right, let me just go. Sorry, I'm trying to. Okay. All right, let's try this. GA. Is it all one word? And yep, mycompany.com. Let's see if I can find you. Oh. Please tell me I can actually search you. Okay, I can't. I wonder if it's because I don't have. I should. SYNEBBY.com. Let me actually change my company. Well, this has turned into a journey. Nope, I can't find it. I don't want to paste it. So what I'm going to do is just send you a whisper. Oh, you dropped it in Twitter. Oh, thank you. That works as well. Nope, can't find it. Which it's probably because I'm using. I'm going to try the Microsoft instance, but I think I'm using a. I don't think my Teams can search because it's not. Yeah. So, but yeah, one of the things I found very interesting was that Datum can actually be used for application packaging within different environments, which is really, really cool because, like, I'm actually really excited for that because essentially you're abstracting away the hard-coded application configuration off of the application itself, and then it's obviously being generated using a configuration itself. So, Let's see if that works. All right. I think I'm just about to add you now. I'm just going to change my audio device to that. Microphone is video broadcast, so you don't need to worry about noise suppression. Join. All right, we have Gael in the call. Gael, whenever you're ready, mate, you can jump in. Hello.
Hello.
How you going?
Good, yourself?
Yeah, good. Let me see if I can somehow get you actually in. Are you happy for me to show your face on the stream?
Yeah, that's fine. No worries.
Okay, I'm just gonna. This is so impromptu. I don't have any of it, so it's just gonna look really weird. I don't know how to actually. Give me a sec. How can I do this? Can I just add a screen? Window capture. Window capture. Teams. Not that one. Hooray! I found you. Okay, this might work.
Yeah, that's me.
Hello! Oh, look at that. This is now turned from an impromptu into an impromptu DSC Datum training
I was so
video.
curious as to, okay, what is he going to say about it? And then has he seen the latest stuff? But yeah.
Alrighty. How do we want to do this? I'm like, I have no idea what to do.
Yeah. So I've seen you started trying to. So it's very hard for me to, because what I see as a huge lag on the audio, obviously. So I try not to watch the screen too much, but I will give you basic instructions. So what I've seen you doing is just trying to do your own, just using Datum, which Datum is made to be just a module, as you've seen, just for managing some data based on YAML. So that is nothing DSC specific there. It's just that you can use it, and that's why it was built initially, but you can use it for DSC configurations. So basically it only uses, or it's best to be used with DSC composites, and then you just provide the data to the DSC composites, and then you can build your configurations like this. The way Datum works, it's a hierarchical database. So you say, well, that's my data sets, but then you can have more, you can have different layers, and you have the most specific layer, and you have the most generic layer.
Yeah.
And that's why when you manage an infrastructure, it makes a lot of sense, because you can say, well, I want my cattles to be all the same, but then live goes in the way, and then you have something in your test environment, or maybe a specific node that you want to test something on. You don't want to affect everything, so you want to have something very specific. And that's the principle of Datum, is to manage those things. Datum is based on Puppet Hira. It's like I invented nothing. I just looked at Puppet Hira and say, oh, that's great. That's what we need for DSC. And I tried to retrofit what they were doing into DSC concepts. So slightly different. It's not Puppet. It's not profiles. It's configurations and slightly different things, but the principle is exactly the same.
Yeah.
So from there were different projects going on to say, okay, how do you get started? A bit like you were trying to do is like, okay, how do I get started? And the idea is easy to grasp initially, but then how to implement it and to get the right process, I would say, or the right pipeline for DSC is a bit more tricky. So there's something which is called the DSC workshop, which is github.com/DSC community/DSC workshop. That's what some of the guys, so Microsoft PFEs, Raymond Andre, Jan-Hendrik Peters, they've been working on this, and they created this pipeline based on the things I was doing before, based on Datum, and we worked together a fair bit. They did most of the code, but I was trying to follow what they were doing and give them some ideas. And then recently I took what they were doing and I say, okay, let's update it to a different pipeline, which is Sampler. Sampler is one of the module automation, similar things as Tuco, Press, or some of the things, in the wild. And the idea is how to get started quickly. So I just use the same thing, and that's used across the DSC community for every, you probably, if you've seen modules, it's the same principle. So I say, well, that works well. We can just change the tasks to be DSC specific and then adapt it. So as you just did a git clone, basically you have the same entry point, which is the build.ps1, and then you can call all the tasks. So if you look into the build.yaml, and then you can look at the tasks available that you can run. So click on the build YAML, and then you will scroll you on there. So you've got init, and then you've got the default task is first do a build, then do a pack.
I think I've just, sorry, one sec. I think I've just broken it. 2 seconds. Sorry, I shared my screen, and I think that was not a good idea. 2 seconds. I think
you don't need to, because I see you on the stream.
Okay, cool. All right. So yep.
And so you've got the default task, which is the dot that's based on invoke build, and then that says, hey, first do a build, then do a pack. On the build is defined later, where it does line 25, it does the init, clean, load datum, configuration, and so on. But you also have just the datum stuff if you want to just see what data is made for a given node. So you have the datum line 19. That's the first thing to do, and that will load the data, validate that the data makes sense, so it's valid YAML files, and then maybe you will have some pester tests to validate that, if you have a naming conventions for server names or things like this, you can put it as pester tests in there. So basically in your terminal, you can start and run the build. The first thing it's going to do is going to resolve the dependencies, and it's going to pull everything it needs, and that may take some time.
Okay.
So if you go in the terminal and you type build.ps1, not just in the terminal, yeah.
Oh, hang on a sec. Sorry. Within the terminal.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go. So I can't see all the error message, but
screen cleared. Hang on. Let me try one more time.
No, you do get. No, just let me finish before you press enter. I will tell you when to press enter. So you do build.ps1, and then you do space dash resolve dependency.
Okay, let's try that. Space. Oh, so it's
dash resolve dependency. No, there's a dash. It's a script. Yeah, resolve dependency. Type again. Yeah, that's the one. Enter.
Yep. Okay.
That should be fine. So now if you expand in the Explorer window, the output folder, I will show you what it does. And then you check and then you check required modules, and then it should start populating this with every dependencies that we need. So to see the dependencies we require for this project, you look at the required modules.psd1, and this is just using psdepend. And you will see it will save them in there. It should save them in there at least. So if you open required modules.psd1.
Oh, sorry, PSD1. Sorry, I was looking in the required modules.
No, that's fine. It should populate them in there, but it will go through all of those here.
Okay.
So it will go through all of those, and then you can see it's already start. Oh, you got an error there. You may not be using. Hold on. That's the problem. You have some. Yeah, it's using package management. Do you have the? So usually I always tell people to remove the old versions, and that's why you probably try to.
Yeah, let me go and kill it now.
Yeah, the hardest bit in the bootstrap is to handle the different package management things that might be loaded.
Yeah, package management is one of those things I found that it's easy, but it's also really quite difficult. It's a bit like trying to update Pester if you've got the default, when you have obviously the original version, because you can't use, I always get caught out because you can't use, update module. You have to use install, install module because it was shipped. Okay, so let's try that again.
Is it a new terminal? I think you may still have a handle on this.
Yeah.
So so bin it, it's going to tell you to. Yeah. Well, 7.2 has some issues with DSC. Well,
yeah. I think this
it's a different DSC.
I think, yeah, so this is running, actually, yeah, you're right, sorry. I know this is running 5.1, and then when I create a separate terminal, it'll run 7. So, yeah, we'll see.
It looks okay. So it looks okay because I can see on the left in the Explorer panel, it is actually adding the things.
Yeah.
So it's using PSDepend, and then it just goes through every dependency. So the first time you run after the Git clone, that's what's going to happen. The next time you don't need to do resolve dependency, everything's going to be there. So you would not need that unless you change your dependencies.
Okay.
So what's happening there? Sorry, I've got the kids crying next door.
That's okay. If you need to step away, that's totally fine. Like,
I got a good excuse now.
One of the most impromptu calls ever.
I've got a good reason for not to have to go with there, so that's fine. So what it's doing is pulling the dependencies, and when it's finished pulling the dependencies, it will start running the different tasks, which are in we can see it sampler.dsc pipeline. So basically, the whole sampler thing is a module I created, which is a base module with templates and plaster templates, so you can start creating your pipeline and it can do different stuff. You can have a DSC resource module. You can have a very simple module. You can have this pipeline. You can have Chocolatey packages pipeline. Just something which is easy to integrate with a consistent way of adding things. Yeah. And there's videos in the DSC community calls, so maybe one day I will share them. Otherwise, I need to create more content for this. But basically, they're just templating machines based on some of the modules. So I said PSDepend for resolving dependencies. I can say module builder when you're building a module from Gael. And there's invoke build for the task management. So there's a lot of dependencies in there. And then in this case, we're just pulling the different things for this example. This is based on the DSC workshop. So what this thing is doing is there's a few, if you look at the source file now, you will see there's a few definitions already for different nodes with different roles, and it will tell us what we want to configure. So that's the something to get started. So if you open dev, for instance, you will see there's some more nodes in there. And then if you click in one of those nodes, you can see this one as so this one has a role of file server. It's called DSC file 01. It's in the environment dev, and then it has some other things to it. So when we see this, it's got some very specific data. So from line 9 downwards, this is very specific to this node. But then you can say that in line 3, it says role is the file server. So if you go to the role and file server, you will see everything else that it inherits from. Yeah. You can think of it like this.
Yeah. So essentially, yep.
So everything in there applies too. And there's even more to that. And that's based on the layers I mentioned earlier, which are defined in the datum.yaml, which says every server will also be based on the server baseline and the DSC baseline.
Yep. So with so sorry, I just quickly. Okay, your dev plus. Sorry, I'm just. So yeah, you have your server baseline, which would then have the following. Yep. Okay. Oh, yep. And that was the one question I was going to start. Is that so? So within Datum itself, the credentials that you encode here, they're passed as a secure string into desired state configuration.
No, credential object actually.
Oh, it's a credential object. Okay. So when it's passed into as a credential object, if you have credential, the certificate set up so that credentials are encrypted, that would then that would then be encrypted onto they'll be encrypted on the MOF file, which would then be obviously then passed to your endpoint. If
you think about, okay, without Datum, without anything, when you write your DSC configuration script and you say, hey, this is my credential, you don't have to tell anything else. You have to tell the node certificate thumbprint if you want it to be done with that one. So I know why you've got this issue, which is something I'm working on. I'll get back to that one specifically in a second. Oh, you don't have Git version on your machine, do you?
Git version, no.
Git version?
No.
Do you have Chocolatey on your machine so we can fix it quickly?
No.
No, not Chocolatey. Damn it.
Actually,
all right.
No. Sorry, actually, I might have Choco. Yes, I do have Choco. Sorry.
Okay. If you're not running as admin, you probably want to run as admin. Is it elevated?
I'll just do it on that.
Yeah, we may have an issue with environment variable. Okay, so Choco Choco install. Yeah, that's fine. Choco install git version.portable.
Git version. Is it git dash version?
No, one word.
Git version.
No, one word. Portable.
Sorry?
Git version dot. Yeah, sorry, there's a lag. Yeah, there's a lag on the display. So yeah. So dot portable, portable.
Oh, portable. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay.
I'm French. Remember that.
Oh, my wife would love to talk. She's like, she's got one of those little she can kind of speak some French, she's currently got a little app at the moment where she's walking around and talking French to the phone. So, yeah.
Next stream.
Yeah. All right. So, do you want me to rerun that build script?
Just go back onto this one. So the problem probably is the environment variable that might not be updated. So if you do $, or maybe it is actually. So if you do git version right now, just in this command line. No, just git version. It's an exit. Yeah, git version. One word. No, in one word. It's a new tool basically, and that helps automatically calculate versions. Okay, so if you retry the same command, the build command, it will automatically use that. So git version is a tool that allows you, based on your git history, to automatically deduct or calculate a sumver for what you're doing. Okay. So you don't have to think about versioning anymore. So when you create a module, every time you merge to master, that will create a new version, and then you can manage that automatically. That's what we do in the DSC community for every module. So then people don't have to go and update the PSD one. It will be updated at build time, and it will have a semantic meaning.
Yeah, that's so cool, because that's the one thing I've always been trying to struggle with, is calculating a version number. So that's really, really cool. I didn't even know that existed. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it is.
Really good.
And that's integrated in the sampler thing. So if you use, in this case, I will show you where it's used, usually in the ASOP, but this is a little bit used, and otherwise you have other ways to manage it. But running through the test, you see you didn't need to do all the resolve dependency anymore, and this is building your ASOP. The ASOP is resultant set of policies.
Yep.
You remember you have all this data which is segregated in layer, but then you want to see, okay, what eventually applies to one node, and this is what the ASOP is about, is to look at through the hierarchy what makes sense to one specific node. So it's still compiling, so it's compiled already the ASOP, so you have the result of those YAML files, and we will look at them in a second. And then you can see it's still going on with the compilation. So now it's going to start compiling the MOF files that you need, which takes time. So in the meantime, we go to the output folder again, and we look for the ASOP folder beneath. We'll get to that. That's the problem with DSC. You have an issue with the chocolatey packages. We will see that in a second.
Okay.
But if you look at the RSOP, that is, so the error you've got is a DSC error, which says, hey, I can't find this chocolatey packages resource you're talking about.
It's probably because I don't have them installed.
Well, it shouldn't be, because it should be in the required modules now. And we've updated your environment variables when we run this, so it should find it there.
Does the required modules, does that automatically ship to the DSC Pull Server? So when you set the Pull Server configuration state and you say, hey, these are the required modules, can you just specify that directory and then it would?
No.
Okay.
So the required modules is only built at build time.
Okay.
So the pipeline is only building things at build time, saying, okay, these are the dependencies you need.
Yeah.
And then for compilation, we need those. So it's pulling them here. When we compile, so assuming that compilation would be successful, one of the next steps would be to package things needed on the pull server. So then you have different zip files if you want. Yeah. And they will be made available for you to upload to your pull server. It doesn't do any of this, because this bit is only the pipeline to build the artifacts you need for DSC.
It's building the artifact, but it's actually not deploying it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That would be for you to do.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Because I kind of got a little excited. I was like, oh my gosh, you've literally saved all my work. So much work saved.
Well,
right now there's so much work to save. So I'm actually so chuffed that you jumped in on the call.
But basically, a lot of these things have been done in the DSC workshop. This has just been, I took what they've done, and then I just used sampler, and I've showed you how it works. I actually use that for one of my customers based in the US. And I know the DSC workshop, they're actually working to reuse what I've done there. So they're going to update very soon. I know Raymond is working on this, because we chat very often about this thing.
That's so cool. So, the one thing, this is actually one of the things I was thinking about, because I know that obviously, there's within, different configuration management solutions, you do have that kind of RSOP. So being able to actually see what the configuration it's doing there. I'm guessing really what it's doing is, once it's compiled the datum configuration, I'm guessing it's just kind of grabbing all the different, all the elements from that specific node, and then essentially doing a recursive query throughout the stack, and then kind of just squashing it all together.
Yeah, pretty much. So it will go for each layer, and we do a lookup for each layer. It will do a lookup, and then it will merge with the layer beneath it. So it will do recursively as you go, and then it will do the recurse, and then it will do the merge based on the definition in the datum.yaml, and then it will go to the next bit, and so on and so on.
Yeah, that's really, really
so
cool.
So that's the result from the point of view of the node. And that means you don't have to duplicate all of this data. It's just written once, and then you use it as a role or an environment or something. And you can make your own. That's not limited. So you can just make the layers you need for your business.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. Yep.
So that's what it does. So now to your error, more specifically, you have an issue with the chocolatey packages.
Yeah.
So usually that happens when maybe, because we had issue pulling things. So maybe I would check first in the required modules that the chocolatey module is there, or maybe, I know why. I think I know why. It might be because it's using, is there nest chocolate, the term chocolatey packages? Okay, chocolatey packages is a composite resource. So to go back a little bit, in DSC workshop, there's composite resource and DSC resources. Composite resources, configuration keyword. So if you're familiar with what a DSC resource is and what a composite resource is, it's relatively easy to understand, but there's two different approaches to build them. The DSC resource is what really is on the node, and that's what's doing the actual work. The composites is just say, well, when we say install these composites, we take several resources and we say that's the properties we want to have them. So a composite is using it's writing a configuration, but a configuration you can reuse.
Yes.
So you can write configuration, my configuration, and that's going to be the name of your composite. And then you can have parameters for that composite. And then you do this. So in this case, the Chocolatey resources is based on the common tasks module. So if you go to required modules, common tasks, you should see in the Explorer panel on the left. Output, required modules, common tasks, and then DSC resources. The composites and the DSC resources are both in the DSC resource folder, at least when it's math-based. And then this is all the composites you have to your that you can use, and they're usually used in this demo, most of them at least. And then there should be one which is called Chocolatey packages up there. Chocolatey packages, and you have more than one. Okay, so it says, hey, I couldn't find this one. To me, it looks like it's there, so I don't know why. I would probably try to import it directly just to see in your terminal what's going on.
I need to specify the path, why not?
Because it's, so if you do import module, common tasks, that should work. But then otherwise, because that's just a DSC resource, you should point directly to the PSD one. So if you type output slash,
sorry, say again. Sorry,
So import module space output slash common task slash
sorry. Common tasks slash. Oh, sorry.
No, you need to go output first.
Oh, yeah.
Before common tasks.
Yeah.
Output required modules.
Output
required modules.
Yeah. Common tasks.
Common tasks, and then 0.3.1.
I'm just going to tab that. DSC resources, Chocolatey packages.
And the PSD one direction.
Yeah, the PSD one. Okay, what do we have?
And then it should tell you why you can't import it.
Multiple versions.
Okay. So, do you have the Chocolatey modules? Oh, sorry. So you do. So the problem is, okay. So there's 2 points. If you open the PSM one, I will show you exactly what the problem is. And that the problem is DSC. Basically, that's the most annoying thing about DSC. This is what I'm going to share with you. So line 18, you can see we say, hey, import the DSC resource module name Chocolatey, which is fine. And it's clear that we want to use the Chocolatey module. The problem is we don't specify the module version exactly. And if you have one or more version, even if it's the same version, the DSC compilation will say, hey, I don't know what you're talking about. You have more than one Chocolatey. So one way to fix that, which is the wrong way to fix that, but that's what Microsoft recommends, it's to go import -DSC resource -module name Chocolatey space dash and then version on the exact version that you want to have. The problem is then if you have an update, you need to go back and then change your module.
It's a breaking change.
Yeah, so it's very annoying. You don't want that. So instead, the only way around this is to manage what you have installed in your machine and make sure you remove your environment variables that, if you already have the Chocolatey module installed on your machine, then make sure they don't conflict. So if you go in again in your terminal and if you do get module list available Chocolatey, we will see which ones are available and from which path.
I just had a thought. Is it possible to just because thinking about how would be this could be done within PowerShell to be able to sounds kind of silly, but essentially you would write a configuration that is, enforces single instances of modules, or you have a script that essentially would, enforce, a single version, and that there's no multiple. Remove. Always ensure the latest version, and then remove any duplicates.
So you can't really. The only thing you can do, which I thought I did, but obviously I didn't, it's to make sure to remove the environment variable that probably should not be there. So you see, in this case, you have one version that is seen in this folder, which you may or may not need, but you don't need this. You don't need at least this PS module path. So maybe you can remove D users, your name, documents, Windows PowerShell modules. You can remove that from your PS module path in this session, and that should be good enough for now.
I've just been the module. It's fine.
You've been the module, which should be fine.
Yes.
So now you can try again, and then. But the problem is, that's the usual problem, and it's very hard because it's very hard to have a clean environment. So that's why managing the environment variable is usually the only thing you can do, which I thought I did, but maybe not yet in this one. Actually, I have a branch which I haven't merged to master yet, so it might be why.
Okay.
But so if you run the build again, and then hopefully that will go, because that should have fixed the problem we've seen, the bug we've seen. Don't do the resolve dependency, not needed anymore. Just build out PS1. I can tell that your machine is powerful. I've seen this running on let's say small laptops, and it takes much longer.
I've had the machine's a couple of years old, but my wife's computer, she gets the best of everything, so she's got the latest and the greatest. And I was saying to my mate the other day, okay, what do we got? A DSC diagnostic is not recognized.
Probably the same problem again.
Okay.
You see, that's a very common issue.
Yep.
So look at your environment variables and maybe remove, like in the $env PS module path, just make sure you don't have some of the things to make sure this environment is not polluted.
Okay.
And then I will make sure that I have a version that does this job for you. That's a big problem with, in Python, you have virtual environments where you don't have things that spills over. But in this case, if you do $env column PS module path, and then you split that, we will be able to see what you have in there. I split that.
Too many.
Yeah. So you see, basically everything after the first two lines, you should probably remove.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
What? Okay. Oh, I know why that's there.
Because you had it already open in the VS Code, right?
Yeah, had a it's a VS Code has it's got its own flavors of its own module paths, but that's okay. I can I'll just update this now. That's fine. Just give me a sec. So we just need to have the first two, do we?
I think we also need the Windows System 32 Windows PowerShell v1 modules. I think that's the only three we need, if I remember correctly. Because we need to have, the utility modules as well.
I'm gonna do it quickly this way then. Okay.
You can do a where clause where you can do that way as well.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you do a where clause. You have users in there. If you have users, you can remove. And if you have Git, you can remove as well. But that one works too. Yeah, that might be the quickest.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing it in PowerShell, and then I thought,
never when you do live.
Yeah, it's all right. Let's see if that. Make sure I've used the right delimiter. Yes. Okay. Cool. I just have this bad feeling that I've done something wrong, and then and then it all just, we spent the entire rest of the stream trying to troubleshoot my problem. My stuff up. I made a stuff up the other day with the PowerShell community textbook, and I'm just like, where I used GitLens, and I switched. I thought I checked out master, but I mustn't have not. I switched branch, but I didn't think I checked it out, and so I did push pull, and I had another branch where I was working on, and I literally just pushed a whole bunch of stuff into master, and I'm just like, shit.
Oopsie.
And I didn't actually notice until one of the guys messaged me. He's like, "Hey, was this commit, like, did you mean to add this chapter like directly into master?" I was like, "No." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, not a great day." So yeah, and then obviously with the power outage, I had to get home, and I was like, I've got so much stuff to do, and I'm like, I have to now fix my mistake. And then I was like, I'm a little bit hesitant to just go and try and reverse a commit. So I was thinking, okay, I'm just going to remove the entry to the chapter, because we've got so many open PRs at the moment. I just do not want to break something and then have to go fix it for each PR in each branch. So one of the guys is a bit of a git gun. Hopefully can fix it, but oh my gosh, I feel like such an idiot. So yeah.
So this is where it failed before, but now it's passed. So the first one is done, and then it's going to go for each of the nodes like this. And so when you see that, so that's something. So we capture everything the configuration is doing, and then we filter the errors, and then you can see that we tell you exactly where it's going. So then it's easier to troubleshoot when there's an issue with compilation. So those who use Azure Automation DSC, if you compile on the Azure Automation service, then you will have absolutely no feedback. And if something goes wrong, you don't really know where it goes wrong. This is helping. So then it tells you it goes composite by composites, and then it will do those composites. And if it fails, it will tell you which composites it's failing in.
That's really, really cool. That's so cool. Just, it's like all the little things that I think about, that you've already done them, which is really, really cool. Just
I've been doing consultancy services, and especially DSC ones, for now, I don't know how many years, probably, I don't know, I would say, 5 years probably, just about DSC or related PowerShell things.
How out of curiosity, how many nodes in DSC have you managed in terms of, like, in a production environment? How many nodes? Oh, sorry, no, in any environment, because let's be honest, Datum is it's not specific to a production. Oh look, okay, that's done. Perfect.
Yeah, so it compiled. To answer the questions, a couple of thousands roughly, the maximum. If you go to the output folder, the problem when you have that many is, a couple of thousands, probably the maximum. It's really easy to manage. After that, it's the same as the problem here in Datum is, how do you manage 2,000 files? That's roughly the problem, the challenge. But that's Datum is still easier than other ways, because if you just have to manage tiny files, a node is just maybe 5 to 10 lines. If you have 2,000 of them, it's still easier than having just an entry in a database, because then your definition is what you see, and what you see is what you get. So it's easier to manage through Datum than through a relational database, as an example. But then the problem is, you want to change one server, you need to find the file into those folders, and that's why we have this setup here, where you have in dev prod test, and we separate the node files, so DSC file 01.yaml, we separate them in their environment. It's not necessary, but we do that because it's quickly really helping. And before, so couple of years ago now, I think, when you're in the Explorer panel in your VS Code, you didn't have the filter So now if you have the focus in the panel and you start typing, it will actually highlight, the file that you want. But before that didn't exist, and that was really hard to find which node you wanted.
That's
so
one
if
of
you
the things,
open,
oh sorry, I was just going to say that's one of the things that I found that with like in this at the back of my mind, I've been thinking about quite extensively is how to make that easier. And the other thing which I was thinking was how can that be abstracted away? So essentially the idea is that if you've got a service, for instance, let's say it's you've got the specific server and this IT is responsible for, let's say, file server, mail server, bad example, file server, some other, member servers that are being managed within Datum. How is it that you can allocate those specific people, just that? And you can obviously lock it down with Git permissions and things like that around there.
owners.
But I actually, this was something that I've kind of been thinking about, and it's one of the things I'm probably going to start working on is looking at a means to be able to actually develop a GUI for it. So I don't know what, again, yes, I don't know what you guys have in the pipeline. I was just kind of thinking along the lines of, is it possible? Because I know, like, for instance, if you think about with Script Runner does an excellent job of that already. If you think about how it abstracts away a lot of that complexity to, the day-to-day operations for specific people. And then I thought, hang on a second, can we do that with design state configuration? Except make it, obviously with data makes it a lot easier to manage in terms of configuration state, but then and then versioning and around that. And then I thought, okay, then is it possible to be able to do that with a GUI, and then essentially say, okay, not to help desk, but to your trusty sysadmin and say, hey, if you want to make a change, you have access to the single node, and you can make changes, and obviously you can then generate some kind of, again, it's like, similar to Swagger, where you can effectively generate the a configuration documentation where they can go, oh, okay, we've got this resource and we can do this and we can do this and we can do this, and then essentially they can make those changes to that specific node. Now, I feel like that there could be a configuration drift, sorry, not a configuration drift, but a bad practice introduced where people would be inserting specific dependencies, turning the server into a snowflake as per se, because there's, people could potentially hard code design state configuration resources specific to that machine that, doesn't necessarily, like, it could apply further up the stack. So, you're removing that repetitiveness. But it's an idea that I've kind of been bouncing around in my mind, because I think that there's a huge opportunity there, especially for a DSC with Datum, because you then make, this is my whole kind of ethos, is that you then get rid of management. Okay, you still can hold on to it, but you can then kind of, trust some of the specific people without having to give them the keys to the kingdom.
So technically, the way you do that, so what you said is correct, and then as the key principle to respect is the release pipeline model. So there's the Microsoft white paper written by Stephen Murawski and Mike Green, which is the release pipeline model, which explain how you manage your infrastructure as code, DSC or not DSC, but in this case DSC, as long as you respect those principles. Perfectly fine. So the link I will put in the chat, it's aka.ms/trpm that I recommend everyone to read that. It's only 50 pages long. It's a white paper, as how do you manage infrastructure from code and what's the principle behind it? TRPM. So HTTPS in front of that. But as long as you respect those principles, that's fine.
Sorry, that's
pipeline. No, sorry, PM.
Yeah.
Release pipeline model. It's 11 p.m. here.
Yep, perfect.
That's why.
Yep.
Here we go. So that's the white paper by them, and it's not really like it's 2016, I believe it's been written. So and it still applies, and it will still for a long time. So as long as you follow those principles, then yes, it's fine. The GUI is nice, but YAML is also a GUI. I know people say, well, but YAML is not nice and stuff. I kind of agree, but at the same time, if you ask someone to contribute to say, hey, you can have, it's a good start. It's not the perfect UI, but it's a good start. And the idea is when you look at the role, and that's what should be edited, when you look at the roles, then someone who sees, shares or see a list of packages, it's literally just adding 2 lines to say, well, I want this other package. And if you have a firewall role, it's another few lines, you just have to follow the same thing. And then to make sure they're not making any mistake, you just use the Git interface, which is, the pull requests, and then you have your test validating the pull request, and then you have the feedback, when the tests are not working. So it's already a great collaboration tool because it's based on Git. A UI should not bypass this workflow because that's a collaborative workflow. And this is where it starts to be a bit more difficult to have a UI that allows you to make those edits. Those edits could be made, some edits could be made. And let's say if you just need to generate the right YAML things and then create a pull request for it. In PowerShell, that's very easy. You can do this very easy. You can just use Datum to generate the thing. You just add some properties and say, hey, Datum, give me the YAML for that. And then you can maybe create a pull request for that. But is there would it be good to have something like this? Yes. Have I thought of this? Yes. Is it easy? No. I know I tried. I'm not saying I haven't given up, but yeah. And again, this is Datum, and you will see probably soon. You use Datum with DSC, but you can use Datum with Bicep for other things. You'll see that in hopefully a couple of months, maybe.
One of the things that I saw, I personally looked at Datum was for app packaging. So essentially because it actually makes it makes a lot of sense if you think about it, especially with app packaging. So if you've got a specific package that you need to deploy to an endpoint, now that endpoint could be a different environment, and within that different environment, you would have different properties that would apply to that package. And I thought actually Datum would be a very, very interesting use case for that, because the idea is that while everything should be repeatable and automatable, why can't our package configurations be the same thing? So we're not specifically building a specific configuration file directly to the package. We're using properties from a hierarchical data model to be able to apply to the package. So it's this kind of I thought about it. I actually think it actually makes a lot of sense, because if you think about it from like let's say you're in a software development environment and you've got the package is going to be different whether you want to install into a production environment as well as if you want to install into the development environment, and that's just connection strings and different elements within that. So it's food for thought.
So the package would be the same. The configuration items would be different.
Exactly.
And because of this, so the way I do this, and I basically use DSC to say, well, so you need first to wrap the package so it's nice to deploy, to manage, to upgrade, to update. And that's Chocolatey. For me, always use Chocolatey for managing this. On Windows environment, this is the way to go. And then on top of that, you need, as you said, you need to have the same templates, but different configuration items depending on the environment, the location, or whatever makes sense to your environment. And yes, Datum is used exactly for that. And that's how I just overlay this on top of the packages. I say, hey, install those. But if it's for this environment, you will use, these parameters as an example. So yeah, that's exactly the way I would do.
Yep. Okay.
And I have done, and I still do. So here we've done the compilation, so you can open the MOF and you should see at least the MOFs that we've built.
Oh, you got the checksum with them as well. Fantastic.
So we've got, that's it. So it tries to prepare everything that you need. You can also look at the compressed modules folder, which is a few folders above.
Yep. And these, and these are your modules.
And
that
this
we'll
is what
deploy.
you to the pull server.
Yep.
With a checksum.
Yep. That's so cool. That is so cool.
Everything's done for you, pretty much.
That's so cool.
So the DSC workshop will be updated with this. So it will be, it will include the exercise to say, hey, you start by doing this. This is the first bit, you know, in your when you really get started with DSC, it explains the very basics of DSC, what a resource is, how do you compile a resource, a MOF, and then how do you apply the MOF, and then it goes, okay, now you use Datum. So what do you do with Datum? You just add a new node, add a new share, add a new package to it, and it goes on like this and explains the different principles in there. And you can just literally use that pipeline, and then you have all of this ready for you. In the DSC workshop, they go a step further when they actually help you automate the deployment of that MOF and the deployment of those modules to the pull server and all of those things. And because also they created this above automated lamp, you can really do everything in the DSC workshop. You know, if you have Hyper-V or if you have Azure, you can just test all of this following the step-by-step.
Okay, that's so cool. Thank you so much. This is really, really cool. All right, let's deploy it. Let's actually build and deploy it.
I'll have to drop though. It's getting late here, and it's my kid's birthday tomorrow morning, so I need to make sure everything's set up.
That's all right. Anyway, thank you so much for the call. It was really, really good.
No, it is. That's fun. I'm glad when some people like you look at those things.
All right. Anyway, thank you so much. Yep.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. So always go to the PowerShell, Slack, or Discord in the DSC channel.
Yep.
Because we are always here. So whether me, the other guys using this, the DSC community, we're always in the DSC channel. So if you have any questions or things, and then just go there, ask your questions.
Yep. Perfect. All right.
Thank you again for your stream, and talk to you later.
Yep. See you later, Gael. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Norris.
Oops, wrong one. I have to close that window capture. Okay, cool. That is really, really cool. All right. Remove window capture. Yes. Okay, cool. I just needed to remove the window capture so that okay, cool. Wow. Okay, that was really, really awesome. That was really, really awesome. Thank you, Gael, so much. I really, really appreciate you jumping in on a call and for us to be able to actually go through a lot of that, getting bootstrapped really, really quickly. So thank you so much. Let's build a DSC Pull Server. But before that, I'm going to take a quick break. I need another bottle of water. And so I will take a quick break for about 2 minutes and then I'll be back. So I will see you then. Alrighty, I'm back, and let's build a DSC Pull Server. So, what we're going to do... Sorry, I'm just thinking about this. Okay, so there's already a number of documentation out there to be able to actually build the DSC Pull Server. So what I might do... let's actually create a DSC Pull Server then. So what we're going to do, create a... Really shouldn't have called it DSC01. Oh well. Alright, so just going to grab all that. Data command, get random. Okay, cool. So we can pass commands into that. Okay, cool. Description, import CSV, environment, DSC configuration, external data.csv, computer name, role description. Okay, so let's go ahead and use computer name, role description. And that is so great. For Gael to jump in on the call and help me out with that, that's really, really good. Thank you so much, Gael. I really, really appreciate it. It also goes to prove that, you know, desired state configuration ain't dead. And there's a lot of stuff that's happening under the hood. It's just that basically, you know, you just got to go look for it. And if you could find it, when you find it, yeah. And like, you know, when Gael's provided a ton of links, and you obviously these links you can get started with in desired state configuration. It's just so great. So thank you so much, Gael. You're a gentleman and a scholar. Alrighty. So I'm gonna go quickly. I'm just gonna copy and paste this in. Really should have called it something else, shouldn't have I? DSC file. Okay, cool. So, okay, so it pulls the description content from there. Okay, you can see that. The computer name is that, so we can pretty much just. This is the beauty about it. So it's all templated. It's all templated. Okay, so we might as well set our IP configuration. 10.4. So I'm just also 10.4.300. It's my IP. 7. Uh, 10.4.204. Server 12. That's true. Okay, so configured our Ethernet alias Ethernet. Hopefully it saw something sketchy. Okay, allow the plain text password, allow domain user. Yep, LCM configuration. So configuration repository web server configuration. So we're going to need to reconfigure this specific item. And so what I'm thinking is I'm just thinking here. I don't know why I did that. Okay, so this is the LCM configuration. I want to have a quick look at the LCM configuration. So where would that be? Server configuration names. Okay. All right. So what we're going to need to do here is, I think we're going to need to create a DSC Pull Server role. So let's go ahead and do that. DSC baseline. So let's go ahead and use the DSC Pull Server. Oh, call it TML. We're not using TOML. I'm using YAML. And what we're going to do is just grab all that, put this in the DSC Pull Server. We're just going to give that version 1. Okay, so you've got your maintenance windows set. Okay, yeah, and here's our LCM configuration. Okay, cool. What we're going to do now is implement some configuration for the DSC Pull Server. So what we're going to do, Windows feature, DSC service feature. LCM config. Is that going to be okay? So service feature. So we need to have a Windows feature. So let's have a quick look at the chocolatey packages. So these are the resources. This is so easy now. Chocolatey packages. New result and set policy configuration, common tasks, DSC resources. Yeah, okay. You see DSC, JEA DSC here, and I'm like, that's so cool. 0.7.2. So what we need here, sorry, I'm just looking for the chocolatey packages. That's going to be embedded within chocolatey. So what I need to look for is Windows feature. That's going to be natively included in the disaster configuration. Is PS disaster XP? Okay, yeah. So what I can just do, I'm just having a massive moment. What I can do is say, let's get rid of that. Let's do this. This is, so we're going to say Windows feature. And then what we're going to say is we need to say name. We can say DSC service. And then we can say point name. Build certificate thumbprint is, well, hang on a second, what I can do here, it's on the actual server, so we can actually run a command, so I can just generate the command directly within the, now, if this was basically sitting inside of a container configuration, would be doing this. This would actually be a hard-coded thumbprint of some kind, but for the time being, we will just do it this way. Sorry, I'm just making sure that, check the chat. Make sure everyone's cool. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go have a look at the certificate resource. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Okay. What we're going to do then? Okay. Let's go and have a look at the build. So great. Actually will resolve the dependencies for you. Okay. All right, DSC certificate. Okay. Sorry, I'm just reading some documentation and I'm kind of learning as I go. All right, so what we can do is we can just say physical path. Let's just pop in the certificate thumbprint. We'll come back to this one. And I'm just going to pop in the physical path. I know that this is not right, but we will just go with the default configuration. Actually, what I'm going to do is just copy and paste all of this. We'll go with the default configuration and then we can adjust it accordingly. So let's just go ahead and bring all that back. Just going to do a quick find and replace here. Space. It's interesting. Okay, so what we can do now, oops, 8:20. Got another 30 minutes, unfortunately, and then I have to go, but that's okay. It's one of the best sessions I've ever had. Okay, so if we've got XDSC web service, DSC Pull Server, we need to specify thumbprint. I'm just going to put it to here. I'm just going to probably run a command within Datum to be able to actually to do that. And we need a registration file. So registration key file. So let's just do that. So let's just go file. Sure. I don't even need to press ensure. I need to press because it automatically will do that for me. A GUID that clients use to initiate a conversation. Do we even? We need the contents, we just need a path. So what we can do is we'll just pop that path there. Okay, so the Windows feature, the LCM controller. We can get rid of this because what do we need it? I'm going to get rid of it. I should keep the maintenance windows, but I really want to get this DSC server set up. So this pull server set up. So Windows feature. Okay, so I just need to escape that. Okay, cool. All right, so run the configuration passing as thumbprint of the SSL certificate as certificate thumbprint in the GUID registration. So okay, I'm just going to generate a self-signed certificate. I know I need to do this, so I'm just join it to the domain first, and then we'll go ahead and restart it. While we're waiting on that, I'll just grab the document. Where does it need to sit? I really need 3 screens now. Yeah, it's really quite hard to bounce between chat and documentation. Okay. All right, cool. Now we're actually on our domain. Okay, cool. So I'm creating a self-signed certificate using PowerShell. Where is the documentation for that? So where does it need to be? Where do we need to put the certificate? Local machine my. Okay, cool. Well, I'm just going to create a certificate for my domain. I think I'm just going to, yeah. DNS name. I'm just going to set up local. Thumbprint. that. It's going to be our certificate. Okay, so now we can do is just paste that in our thumbprint here, like so. All right, so we have Windows feature, DSC service file. Now this rolls for DSC's Pull Server, so what I'm going to do is jump back up and sort of minimize the output here. I'm just going to call it DSC Pull Server. So it has the following network IP configuration. Does it need? I'm going to remove the LCM configuration because I don't believe we need that. I just want to make sure there's anything else that we need to include. Registration key. So allow client nodes to register with the server. They use configuration names instead of configuration IDs. Yep. Registration key. Yep. That's yep. Reporting, placing configuration resources, DSC response package format. Okay, cool. All right. Let's deploy. Resolve the dependencies. Feel that we have them all there, and then we can see if we can deploy this. And see if we have any issues and see if we can troubleshoot them. I think I saw something. Yep, assertion failed. Okay. Location of DSC1 in Australia does not exist. Okay. There's no Australia location, so we're going to need to create that. Let's go ahead with that. I don't think there's anything in here I need. I'm just going to go create one anyway, but... oh my gosh, I always put T. I don't know. That's actually Brisbane. I don't think we need to add any configuration there, but I'm going to just include it anyway. And then I'm where's my DSC location? Brisbane. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and rerun that. I really should fix. See if I can figure out a way I can fix this. I'd like to see the right progress. Showing PowerShell gallery is thrusted. Yep. I actually think that this is a very interesting concept. Is for my future streams, maybe I might do it. Maybe before Christmas, maybe next stream. I'm gonna be interesting. Let me know. We do a bit of a podcast where we kind of just get different people in on the call and we just talk about different pieces of technologies and kind of have, well, you know, an unofficial meetup where we just kind of talk about, you know, what's happening in the wild, look at rumors, what's happening. You know, talk about issues that people are having, you know, really kind of address a lot of the concerns around some of the issues there. So that's actually, yeah, that would be a very interesting idea. Hit me up if you're interested, because I think that a podcast would be a pretty interesting concept, especially around, like, I know that myself and Marcus were having a chat about with the PowerShell community, or the PowerShell conference books, was getting all the former kind of senior editors in the on a call, and we just kind of do a retrospective, a review and retrospective on what worked well within the writing with DevOps, what were the big issues that we personally had, and what we had to overcome. There's a lot of, and I think that actually might also, we can probably do some of them occasionally. I still like writing code, but I think that just having a bit of a conversation and chatting with people, I think is an interesting area we could probably explore. So that looks like it's compiled. I don't see, so we can actually have a look at our resultant sets. Let's go have a see where we're going to go. So, yep, so we've got a description, we've got a file, it's going to go and put that there. We've got some maintenance windows. Oh, yeah. It's always going to have a maintenance window. Plain text, Windows feature, LCM controller, maintenance mode. Man, I am learning so much. Like, I think in this one session, I've learned more than anything. Okay, so XDSC web service, not recognized. Now, if I suspect the reason why it's not working is because I've got a duplicate. So I'm going to go and have a look at that, and I think I do have a duplicate of that, so I'm just going to go and bin it. But I'm going to check before we do anything there. So cool, you can see everything. It's so great. Yeah. So while we're waiting for this, yeah, I actually don't mind throwing people into calls. I think it's actually a really cool thing. And we can kind of just chat away and talk about different things and learn at the same time. It's really, really, really good. Be very interesting. Yeah, I'm really thinking about it, and I think that just throwing a couple of people on a call and just talk tech, and talk about have a couple of discussion points that we can focus on, but just talk about especially around PowerShell and just looking at what's happening out there, and kind of it's kind of an interesting concept. Quickly, what we might do is I'm just going to can this, and what we're going to do is, I should have really done that before. I should have, I'm gonna have to, actually, I'm just going to run the build. I don't think we need to use the dependency anymore. Just looking for, hopefully I don't need to resolve the dependencies and I can just run it, hopefully. And then if I can grab that error and then I can just fix it. Okay, cool. All right. So command not found. Desired state configuration, X DSC web service. Okay. Okay, cool. All right. So let's go and have a look at that. Okay, that's why. So, oh, yeah, I've got multiple versions. Whoa. Okay, I'm just going to go bin it. At the end of the day, though, it doesn't particularly concern me. Like, I'm going to think of a way to. Gael actually raised a very interesting concept of being able to build it in an environment where you don't necessarily, like, you can have a clean environment without having to. Okay, cool. Without having to essentially, you know, modify environmental files and things like that. That's a very interesting concept, which that might be a future project for me. But let's just go ahead and build this. I really want to have this deployed today, but I am keeping a very close watch on the time. I have to be going very, very soon. So, go now. See non-git. I think I might need to resolve dependencies. The term is not recognized as a name command. DSC web service. Resolve dependencies again. I think I need to. See that mod file, and I can deploy it, and then we can just watch this DSC Pull Server being configured. That's what I want to do today. Let's hope that it can work. While I'm having a look at that, let's have a look at the build YAML file. So, defining workflows. Yep, your build, your pack. This must be required 5.1. Yep. So these are the tasks within build. Chocolatey packages. I don't think it's chocolatey. Well, we'll find out. Oh, here we go. Yep, compilation, processing configuration. Please review errors. Okay, I saw the name of the PS module up top. Ah, yeah, no, it does. Sorry, no, we're not mucking around with that. No, it does use Choco to install stuff because within the configuration we're using Choco to actually install stuff. I'm wondering if actually I probably need to restart it. That's probably why. I think that's probably why I need to restart it. I don't think I need to resolve the dependencies. I think I can just run the build. I'm hoping I can just run the build. one thing I really like is the fact that you can actually generate a result in set policies. So you can actually see exactly what's going to happen. So that's really, really quite cool. Yeah. Please work, please work, please work. I just want to see this today. That's going to make my day if I can get this done. Especially if I can get it to go on first go. Have you ever played around with HTML and PowerShell, like having a web page invoke PowerShell commands? So there's actually a couple of modules out there. Now, you have the PowerShell Universal Dashboard, which essentially allows you to define. No. You can define. It came across this really random. You can essentially you just write PowerShell and it'll build an HTML page. There's this. There is a PowerShell module. We stumbled across this guy's module. I think I put it on my Twitter actually. Let me see if I can find it. Yes, this guy. It's a very interesting. Alex, one of my former colleagues, but really good mate, found this. It's called Pod, and it essentially is a similar thing to Universal Dashboard, where you can write PowerShell to do that, but native, we just kind of stumbled across it, and it's very, very interesting. So you can write websites using PowerShell to call websites. To call websites is a little different. Let me just chuck this link in because. That's really, really quite cool. You obviously have Universal Dashboard, but this guy definitely deserves a shout out. Like, I was looking at some of his contributions, and he's very, very good. And so I shouted him out on Twitter as well. So, yeah, definitely check it out. Yeah, it's quite interesting. But if you're calling PowerShell from a page, there's two ways you can do it. Now, you can do it on the server backend. So in that instance, what you would need to be able to do is you'd need to be able to actually pass the script into the server, and then the server essentially within C#. There's two ways you could do it. You can essentially you could load the automation class and execute it that way. So essentially you pass the code in, and I've done that previously. Or you could just kind of go down the path, which I've seen people do, is essentially just create a PowerShell process and then call it that way. So essentially you could, there's kind of a couple of methods to be able to do it. Back in the day, what we did was we wrote a PowerShell function app which sat up in Azure, and essentially what it had was a service that would talk to the function app. So it was essentially a very loose implementation of the hybrid runbook workers within Azure Automation. So essentially you could have an on-premise instance to be able to run PowerShell, but you could essentially invoke that PowerShell from the cloud. And essentially the way that it would work is that obviously you're using a database backend, and it'll just encode the PowerShell as a base 64 string, pass it to, then you would have a service on the machine, and the service essentially just used the system.automation. I can't remember the exact class name, but essentially it's a PowerShell class name which you can use to load the class, pass the PowerShell, dynamically pass the parameters into PowerShell, and then call it. Now, I don't want to talk about this anymore because I really want to get this done, and I don't think I'm going to. So this is XDSC web service is not recognized as the name of commandlet function script file. I'm just gonna, oh goodness, we are definitely term DSC diagnostic. Okay, I think I'm going to need to clean up my environment. I think I'm going to definitely need to do this. Unfortunately. I'm just gonna have a quick look. Okay, so what we're going to do. Let's do that. Let's try run it again. And hopefully that fixes it. So what I've just done is I've just basically removed out a whole bunch of the predefined modules from the environment variable, and then I'm just going to try and rerun it. Because what's happening is, as Gael has described earlier, is that I have duplicate modules, and DSC is a bit of a pain because, no. Or it could just be me, but I'll have to get that. Yeah, but essentially, yeah. I want to actually just within the build script. Can I just specify a single? Wondering whether I the errors. Design set configuration. Okay. It's gonna can this script. Because that shouldn't be. Yes, the DSC Pull Server. I'm just gonna go and get. That's not there. There's only one instance of the module. Let's have a quick look at the sort of the network path configuration. So it's loading the role, which is DSC Pull Server. So if we go to DSC Pull Server, we've got Windows feature, X DSC Web Service. I think it's to do with this. So I'm just going to go back to the documentation and have a quick look. That's the XDSC Web Service, PC. Because PS desired state configuration, XPS desired state configuration. I think it's just the DSC Web Service now. I don't think it's the XDSC Web Service. Because I don't think it's experimental anymore. I think it's in mainstream. I could be wrong. I'm just going to try this. It looks not the best idea, but we will try. And I don't think I need to resolve the dependencies because it should already be there. Please work. Oh, that's all right. You don't need to, like, I can be distracted. That's all right. I just want to see, as long as this boot, okay, I think I'm resetting my, oh, no. Okay, all right. So term DSC, the term XDSC Web Service is not recognized. Okay, cool, all right. I think it must be XDSC resource. Oh, no, because not there, that's why. Okay, let's try that. I'm really kind of like rushing myself right now because I really want to get this done. I'll probably have a play around with this when I get some downtime this afternoon. Yeah. Did your other videos get deleted or removed? So all my videos, my stream videos, they don't stay up very long on Twitch, but I do upload them to YouTube. So if you head over to the Brisbane. My next door neighbors are absolute guns. If you head over to the Brisbane DevOps Infrastructure DevOps user group, all my streams go in here. So I haven't really, I haven't uploaded. I didn't upload the last. Yeah. So I think it's not going to be happening today. So I might as well just quickly chat about this, and I'm just going to have a play with it this afternoon. But that's okay. And I can just talk about what I did wrong. So within here, all our meetups and everything's in here, and you can see here I generally integrate that. The last stream I did, I wasn't feeling well, so I actually stopped the stream early. I had to go to bed because I was just very unwell. So I hadn't uploaded the latest one, but I'll definitely be uploading this one. I'm recording and streaming at the same time. So yeah, it'll probably get uploaded maybe today or tomorrow, but you can definitely get through there. It'll still be on Twitch as well. And personally, I don't really care if it gets copyright claimed because I'm not really making any money off this. I'm not really interested in making money. So yeah, so it'll be up on there. I'll just paste the link up there. So you have Selenium PowerShell on your GitHub. Yes. So one of the things that I did, I've got a PR up for it at the moment, so there's a PR. So essentially what I did is I integrated the HTML agility pack into Selenium in the Selenium PowerShell module. So the idea is that it adds a couple of extra commands, but it's really essentially having two methods to be able to get something to get HTML content. So Selenium is really good around that. However, the one thing that Selenium just doesn't have, which HTML agility pack just makes it so easy, is that you can pass the HTML into it, and it essentially transforms all the elements into a PS object, into an object. And within that object, you can then do stuff with it. So you can go hunting for things, you can go and do things. And within that, essentially the way that it kind of hooks them both together is just using XPath. So you can generate XPath, and then obviously you can pass XPath within, yeah. And so it's really, really quite cool. I managed to get, oh, thanks. I managed to get it working. It's the problem that I have is that Selenium, it's a fairly loose match. So if you have a look here, what I did was there's different ways you can essentially perform the match. So it'll attempt if you've specified an element ID. Then this is just because the way you have various HTML systems like React and that work. You don't generally specify an attribute like ID on an element anymore. Generally, it's a little bit more abstract to that. So you kind of have to be really creative. So essentially, if you pass in the ID, it will go and grab the ID. And just basically it just formulates an XPath query to go and fetch the ID. And then if you actually pass the XPath, it'll use that exact XPath to go and perform the lookup. And then if it has a class and a tag name, it will try and do a loose match. This is literally, it's cascading to perform a match. But if it can't perform a match, it's not going to be able to perform a match. So there's not enough specific content there to be able to match it. But the really cool thing is that the commandlets that I wrote to help with it is Where do I pass the commandlets? Now I can't find the commandlets. Okay, yeah. So essentially what you can do now is that you can do this in XPath. Like this is 100% possible within XPath. You can traverse the HTML element stack within XPath quite easily. One of the things that is really, really quite cool was that within the HTML agility pack, what we can actually do now is we can traverse that stack without having to use XPath because we have the objects. Essentially, we've got two objects in synced, and we can be able to traverse different things. So essentially, you can go and get the element, and then essentially go and find the parent element. And it's so easy. So essentially, if you want to get the parent, you can basically go and find the node, the element. So you can see here, I've got I can just pass the element in, and then all it needs to do is go to that node, and then basically, it goes to that element, and then it just goes to the parent node, and that's it. So it's really easy to get around to do stuff with it. And the other thing which I did was to get the child element. So it does have an expression where the way that how XPath works within the two items, it can get a little bit funky. But the idea is that, yeah, you can essentially wrap the... you can go and fetch the child element. So if you go and grab, a login box, you can literally return the actual Selenium elements for those child elements, which is really cool because it means that you can go, all right, I want to get all the child elements and then do stuff with Selenium. So yeah, that's one of the things that really made it quite cool. And then obviously there's really the two components I added, but then basically the structure that sits around it makes it really quite powerful, and you can do a lot of interesting stuff with it. So yeah, that's one of the things that I've been working, that I've worked on for a little bit of time. So yeah. But anyway, that's it for today. I have to go. I have to get in a car and go for a very long drive for a Christmas lunch. So thank you for joining. A huge thank you to Gael. He really made me getting started, and Gael really helped with bootstrapping, this entire process. And obviously a huge thank you. It's quite late for Gael. Yeah, thank you. I learned so much today, and I think that was, and I think people who were watching as well learned a lot as well. So, and I kind of feel like we should be doing all this. This is actually really, really quite cool. And this is something that maybe I should grab a couple of other people, and they can kind of show me their product, and we can kind of bootstrap me into the process, and then people can kind of follow along. It's an interesting concept, which I think, like, yeah, I learned so much today, and it's just it's always an amazing time when you can have people like Gael, that can just willing to spend their own time to kind of, help out and just really impact, really, and make a massive impact on the community. Like what Gael has been doing with DSC is just phenomenal. And it's, and I'm going to say this again and again, desired state configuration is not dead. The DSC Pull Server is end of life, which means that there's no new features, but the DSC Pull Server is still available. You can still use it. It's still going to work. It's missing some advanced features. You can use Azure Automation, but at the end of the day, though, desired state configuration is not dead. There's plenty of, a lot of the configuration that's, like the bootstrapping and all that. It's just phenomenal. So, what's the alternatives? So you've got DSC Pull Server, which essentially, the reason why I'm using DSC Pull Server is because there's two things: cost and security. Our network's air gapped. We can't actually use Azure Automation. So Microsoft recommends to use Azure Automation or Azure Guest Policy Management, which essentially is part with Azure Arc, which essentially is their new way of being able to managing their on-prem machines within the cloud. So within Azure Automation, you have DSC Pull Server there, and you can also manage DSC within Guest Policy Management. There's open source alternatives such as Tug and DSC Trek, They're all documented within, if you go and have a look at setting up DSC Pull Server within TechNet documentation, they're all included in that. You can kind of, have a look there. The only reason why I'm going to use DSC Pull Server is mainly because at the end of the day, though, the DSC Trek and Tug seem, again, I might hit up Don Jones. I might send him a tweet and maybe we can have a talk about it. Though it's probably going to be very late for him, so maybe not. Actually, no, I don't know. I don't know what time zone it is there for Don. But to talk about what's happening there. But I think that at the end of the day, though, the main thing is that design state configuration is not dead. And as a configuration management, with Datum, if you're not familiar with how Datum works, Datum is a hierarchical configuration. Is a hierarchical configuration tool. That's probably the best way to describe it. And essentially, the idea is that you define your configuration, and it essentially merges it and squashes it together. So the reasoning for doing that is that essentially you want to be able to define common configurations for all your servers, and then as you abstract up the tree, then basically those configurations would change, or you add content to it. So for instance, you've got a server baseline, which everything all the servers get. Then you get some additional content on top of that, and then on top of that you get node specific stuff. So stuff that's basically specific to a server. So whether it's a file server, it's and that basically will say, okay, we need to go and get the file server role. So it's not saying we need to build an exact file server. It's just that we're going to get the file server role. And then we're basically, and what I mean by role is these are roles. So you've got, like, for instance, a domain controller, web server. So you're adding this specific set of design state configuration as a role into it. So it's a really, 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 it's basically how, Puppet Hero works. But it's a really, really great way to be able to manage your configuration, because at the end of the day, though, it's a lot easier to manage it in this sense than it is to manage it outside, on a, and then have, repeatable, and repeatable and automatable processes to be able to manage that. So, I have to go, but anyway, thank you everyone for joining. I hope you had a really good time. I had an amazing time. Thank you so much to Gael for help bootstrapping this process. I'm going to continue to play around with this. Next week, we will be, just checking my calendar. Next week, I think we will be streaming again. I can't be 100% sure. If not, I might stream again, and then I'll cut the stream early because if we've got commitments. And then, yeah, so I'm also thinking maybe I might do maybe a bit of a podcast Christmas special where we just get a few guys in the industry and everyone can just jump in on a call, and we can all kind of just have a bit of a roundtable discussion about different areas of technology and just talk tech and have a bit of fun. And so anyway, guys, thank you for joining, and I hope to see you guys next week. Bye for now.